and welcome to the next edition of the Holland Land Office Museum's Artifact Video Series. My name is Ryan Duffy and I'm the director of the museum, and this week we're going to talk about one of Batavia's more interesting businesses that arose during the early 1900s, and that was the Mathes Shell Novelty Company. Now, the history of the company dates back to around 1900 when a man by the name of Kirkby Mathes started a shell and novelty company in Buffalo. However, as things started to expand, he needed a larger space and eventually moved here to Batavia in 1901 to open up a factory. The factory had an initial workforce of about 25 people, and the first temporary location was behind the Dellinger Theater on Main Street. However, within a year, he was able to find permanent operating space on Jefferson Avenue here in the city, and he was able to build and finance a 40,000 square foot factory. Now, this factory was added on to throughout the years and actually had large shipping yards included, but the decorating of the building spared no expense as well, as the fine wood interior was done by the Batavia Woodworking Company, and all the best machinery in order to make the items was brought in, and it was said at the time that no company could compete with Mathes around the world in terms of making these types of. However, even with the brand new machinery, it was a very time-intensive process in order to taking shells from their natural state in order to make them into fine novelty items like the things that you see here. The shells had to first be cleaned in large vats of lye and then to be decorated by hand. So this was not something that could be machine operated very easily, or an assembly line. It had to be done by semi-skilled workmen at least. So some of the items in their catalog include napkin rings made from cowrie shells, pin cushions made from large shells stuffed with velvet, and glass paperweights filled with various shells. Other things would be like these jewelry in boxes or handkerchief boxes that would be decorated with all sorts of shells. And the company actually sent agents out all around the world looking for all kinds of different shells and markets in which to sell. And they even had contacts in London, Bombay, Yokohama, Japan, Singapore, and Manila in the Philippines. And their products could be seen throughout the United States and Canada. Now, the Mathes company grew rapidly, and by 1909 it was actually incorporated with a stock of $70,000. And with this prosperity, they were able to introduce other items in order to adapt to their ever-changing customer base. And by 1914, so within less than 15 years, the workforce had grown from 25 people to over 150 workers. And they started making wooden plaques, felt pennants, metal ashtrays, and other different household articles. And they started selling wholesale to major companies. However, with the outbreak of World War I, their supply of shells and other items was cut off in many cases or dwindled extensively. And it became very difficult to get these types of shells. And to make matters worse, in 1918, a large fire erupted in one of the factory buildings and damaged a lot of the materials and production equipment. So this actually forced Mr. Mathes to stop the production of novelties and to focus on a new product. And this product he called Unilac, which was a liquid finish for the heels of ladies' shoes. And it was applied by an airbrush. It was actually one of the first chemicals ever to be applied with an airbrush in the world. And it was the first time that an airbrush was used in a commercial capacity. Now, Mr. Mathes would pass away in 1921, and his business would be run by his wife and sister, though they were not as adept at the business side of the process, and the company was gone by 1940. Now, the Unilac part of the company would live on as the Kozak company would take over part of that and would actually take over some of the building. And so a lot of the Mathes operation would be swallowed up by Kozak after its diminishing. Well, I hope you enjoyed this edition of our Artifact video series, and hope you enjoyed learning a little bit more about the Mathes Shell Company and some of the very unique items that they were able to produce here in Batavia. Now, in case you've missed any of our previous episodes, as we're well over 50 now, you can check them out all on our YouTube channel, Holland Land Office Museum. And if you'd like to check out anything in person, please stop by the museum here and we can tell you a little bit more about the items and you can see them firsthand.